Welcome, LA Progressive friends, readers, family. Today, Dick and I are going to be interviewing an old friend, as we often do, Anjuli Kronheim Katz. When we first met Anjuli, she was Anjuli Kronheim, so we've known her for many years. She'll talk about how long it's been. Anjuli is on staff with a wonderful nonprofit called Bend the Arc, and I'm going to let Anjuli tell you a little bit about what Bend the Arc is all about. And then we're going to go on into discussing the exciting work that Bend the Arc is doing and that Anjuli is doing.
Yeah, thank you too. It's really nice to see you both. We met in like 2010, maybe?
Maybe.
Yeah. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Bend the Arc is the largest national Jewish social justice group that's only focused on domestic policy. So yeah, that's what Bend the Arc does.
Wow.
Could you give us a little history? How did it get started, and what projects are you working on, and what's your focus?
So Bend the Arc was actually a merger in 2012 between two other organizations on the West Coast. It was Progressive Jewish Alliance, which you may or may not be familiar with, but a lot of work with the labor community, a lot of organizing in Southern California and Northern California, things like the Clean Car Wash campaign comes to mind. And Jewish Funds for Justice from more of the East Coast, which was like a funding entity for community organizing groups. So the two merged in 2013, 2012, and it was like kind of a messy, interesting, complicated time. And it was, multiple boards and some wild names, and then we created one entity to be one national organization. And I actually started in 2013, so right after all of that. And yeah, Dick, you asked a couple things, so that's like where it came from.
Yeah. What projects are you currently working on personally, and Bend the Arc as a whole?
Yeah, so Bend the Arc is in the midst of, we just finished a new strategic plan, including a new vision, mission, and theory of change focused on dismantling white supremacy and living towards Black liberation. So within that, like tangibly, we're working on a lot of local, state, and federal policy campaigns, some electoral campaigns. We have this is like nonprofit tax policy speak, what I'm about to say, of 501c3, which does the education and work, a 501c4, which does the lobbying and more political work, and a political action committee, a PAC. So we have all three of those entities to do this work in the Jewish community. A lot of our campaign work fits under the Breathe Act, which is a visionary policy put forward by the Movement for Black Lives. And we are under no, we don't believe that policy is actually going to pass in Congress this year or anytime super soon. But there's a lot of planks in it that are relevant to local, statewide, or other federal policy in line with Black liberation. So we're fighting to pass some of those. And then if we can show the veracity that those policies actually work, maybe one day we can get something like the Breathe Act passed. So that's like the crux of most of what we're doing, but we can get into more too.
So some organizations are principally in the courtroom, some are pressing on legislators, some are pressing on street actions. Where do you think your focus is?
We do a lot of direct lobbying in state houses, city council, or Washington, D.C. A lot of campaigning, like inside outside game to pass those policies. In the electoral realm, we do direct fundraising or like partner with organizations doing independent expenditure work with candidates and supportive candidates. We work completely in line with BIPOC-led partners, ideally Black-led partners, and they're leading most of the strategy, and we're figuring out where our unique value add is on those campaigns. We do a lot of like education and political education too, around some cohort learning experiences, and we could get more into details there if that's helpful, or deeper political education with our board members, stakeholders, and the Jewish community at large. So those are some of the ways we are making change.
So on your website, it says how we bend the arc. Bend the Arc is building a multiracial, multi-ethnic, intergenerational movement of Jews and allies all across the country who are rising up to build an American future free from white supremacy, antisemitism, and racism. And that's really our goal. That's my life goal, is to work towards that. Really, it's just so exciting to me that you are fighting for the future, the joyful future, which is what it says on your website, and Black liberation. And it's really unusual for a white-led organization to have Black liberation as one of their core missions on their website, which is one of the reasons that I wanted to interview you, because I thought, wow, they get it. They understand that it is impossible for the progressive community to accomplish anything until we deal with this. So you want to talk a little bit about how that ended up happening with Bend the Arc?
So we did first, I'm so glad that like resonates so much with you and that it feels so meaningful and important. It does to me too. That's great. So like I said, we had the merger in 2012 and 2013, and then I'm going to do a little bit of history to get, I think, to where you're going, but feel free to interrupt, either of you. So in around 2013 to 2015, 16, we started to build a national field with chapters, and we started our PAC in that time too. So we're just starting to ratchet up and starting to sort of like proactive, visionary, what are we for campaigning work with those partners in those new cities with the Political Action Committee. And then we were actually some of the first people in 2015 and 16 during the campaign, the national presidential campaign, calling now former President Trump what he is, which was a fascist, and how fearful we were of that possibility in reality. And when he was elected, Bend the Arc is not unique in this, but a lot more people wanted to get involved with our organization and our work, because this is my words and maybe not necessarily Bend the Arc's words. A lot more white people were kind of in the boat now, and seeing how scary these realities are that Black people and people of color have been dealing with under many different administrations or elected officials. So our organization grew significantly in that time. And we kind of moved away from the like starting these city chapters and the way that we were doing it to saying yes to most people who said they wanted to start a chapter and start organizing it with us. So we exploded. And in that time period, because there was so much SHIT hitting the fan, we were opposing a lot on the state level, on the federal level, getting in the streets more, and not really focused forward and proactive campaigning work. So after all of that, we did a strategic listening campaign to our core leaders, our partners, our Jewish and our not Jewish partners, some of our white partners, some of our BIPOC, Black-led partners and leaders, other donors. I think we did literally 192 stakeholder interviews or focus groups, and the sort of data scientist who looked at that was like, what, this is so much, like how am I going to deal with this? But they figured it out. Usually they said they see 50 inputs or something like that. So Sharon, your answer is like, it came out of all of those conversations, and we sort of weighted BIPOC Jews and Jews of color's opinions and strategic ideas a little heavier than white folks. And our Black staff and board members helped to write where our new vision, mission, and theory of change is. So they really took the leadership. We still need to do the work of really defining and maybe forever defining what Black liberation is, with Black people and Black Jewish people in particular. But that's a little bit about how we landed, and we still need to do some more discernment, because as I said, we do a lot. Like the education work, the political action committee work, the organizing work. We also do like press work and trainings for elected officials. So I would still love us to be even a little bit more discerning.
So you mentioned that you do cohort training, and I didn't really understand what that is.
Oh yeah, sorry. So we have a couple of leadership development programs, I guess you could say. There's the Jeremiah Fellowship, which is about 22 to 32-year-old young Jews. Sometimes it's in a couple cities, sometimes it's in more like 10. And they get some organizing skills, some Jewish justice skills, and they like do the organizing with the chapter work, but they come together and do that learning. We have the Sela leadership program, which previously has been for more like mid or executive level Jewish people looking to like sustain their work in the justice field and get connected. And now it's been primarily a space for Jewish people of color in those spaces in their career. And then we have a pilot program ending soon in the Bay Area called Project Shamash, which is another space for Jewish people of color. The Bay Area has, some estimate, like 25% of the Jewish community there is people of color and Black people. So there's a lot of there's some professional development work of those folks in the Jewish community and some other cohort spaces. So that's what I mean when I say like some cohort education work.
Great, thank you.
Great. I love that you have on your website a page that's dedicated to celebrating Black Jewish brilliance.
Yeah.
There are individuals who are highlighted, and you give their Instagram, links to the Instagram accounts, and you give us a little brief bio about what they do. I love that. And how did that come about?
I'm not like super deep on the communication side of things. I think you've known me for a bit. It's not my strong suit to come up with the images and those kind of stories. But I mean, here's what I will say. There is racism everywhere, but there's racism in the Jewish community and some invisibilizing of people of color and Black people that are Jewish and thrive and should be thriving in that community. So it's really important to tell those stories and uplift those people. I think that's like key. It's so that more Jewish people of color and Black Jewish people can see themselves in those, like they could strive to be, visionaries too, or see what it's like to have people like them in the limelight.
So anti-Semitism is always with us, but in recent years, maybe thanks to Trump and DeSantis and Marjorie Taylor Greene, it seems to have taken several large steps up, playing out in violence against Jews on the streets of Los Angeles. Do you have any concerns about that? Do you do anything about it? How does it affect you personally?
Yeah, personally very concerned. I have a lot to say about this. Actually, Dick, there's something in the way that you said, anti-Semitism is. I would actually love for us all to, anti-Semitism, racism, sexism, xenophobia, these are not things that just exist in nature. They don't happen. People use them. So people are using anti-Semitism and other forms of hatred or isms. They didn't come out of nowhere. I think it's actually an intentional effort from those who fear the ratcheting up of anti-Semitism is an intentional effort from those who fear the prospect of losing power, authority, prestige, as America actually has the opportunity to finally become, as Sharon was so excited about, the true multiracial democracy we envision. We know people rely on division and fear to hold on to power or hold on to their power or whatever is still there. And they'll resort, as they always do, to whether it's anti-Semitism, anti-Black racism, xenophobia, whatever. And the challenge to the Jewish community right now is to not go into isolation in times of fear. This is something we've done in the past. And we need to join across racial and religious differences or gender differences so that we're in safety together and not on our own. Because I think that's the only way Jews can be safe in America. And personally, like, I do not feel safer when someone with a gun is outside synagogue when I'm trying to pray. I think it actually makes us less safe. Or, the shooting in the synagogue in Poway near San Diego, that congregation actually had a live shooter drill recently, like a month or two before the shooter was there, and they rushed the shooter, and there was no one with a gun or no police or no guard that needed to be there to save them. They saved themselves. And guards and gates and guns, I don't think make me safer, don't make us safer. I think we need to name anti-Semitism sort of, at the beginning of this. People are using it. People are using racism or whatever they're using to hold on to their power. It doesn't just happen. It's not like a waterfall or like a gust of wind. And name the actors that are using it to show that it's not this scary natural thing that we can never end. And yeah, personally, as I have this 8-month-old, and we'll see how safe he feels in the Jewish community. And I would love it to be as safe as possible and as welcoming as possible.
Yes, yes. I don't know about you, but things changed for me when I became a mother, and then they changed again for me when I became a grandmother. And some people that believe in the inevitability of racism and anti-Semitism. And I'm like you, I don't believe in the inevitability of those things.
Yeah.
I think that those things are constructs, and they're constructed for a reason. And I feel that it's incumbent upon anyone that believes that to be true, that it's a construct, to reveal what that construct is about. And that's why the LA Progressive exists. I also think that, and I'm not here really to talk about what I think, but it's nice to.
But amen,
Yeah, but we have to have solidarity across race, across faith, across class, across gender, across all of these things that currently divide us, if we are to tear down these structures of oppression. Yep. So I'm very excited about what Bend the Arc is doing. So I noticed that you had something on about Black Futures Month, and I just want to put in a plug for the Movement for Black Lives. So how did that connection happen between Bend the Arc and the Movement for Black Lives?
I mean, so the Movement for Black Lives isn't just like one thing. It's a coalition of, I think, about 50 or more organizations. So we've had connections with some top leadership of some of those organizations for years. Our previous CEO did a different training program with Rockwood with many of them, folks from like Color of Change and UndocuBlack, and but like leaders of those organizations. So those partnerships have been around, and we've been doing work on the Hill with like more Black-led and Black immigrant rights partners for a long time. So, the Breathe Act is one vehicle that we're supporting with the Movement for Black Lives, but it's like, again, there's lots of different policy planks, federal and local and statewide, with those partners that we're supporting too. And also like changing the conversation around community safety with some of those partners as well.
So how do you maintain hope, and what inspires you, especially in light of the fact that Donald Trump may be nominated for, a second term? What kinds of things keep you guys motivated?
Personally, somebody told me once, change happens in 200-year arcs. And when she said that to me, I really felt like punching her in the face. But she's right. And like this takes a really long time. And I may not get to see the changes that I'm hoping for, but my son probably will see some, and, future generations. And it's not necessarily about me. And if I'm not involved in the struggle for this visionary future, then like, what am I doing? I need to be a part of it. And this is, a career. I do make like my living this way, but I just can't, like, what am I going to do? Work at a bank? Like, I don't really see another path for myself. I'm also deeply inspired by the possibility of just organizing community labor, all like actually organizing ordinary people coming together to be the bigger fish than an elected official or a corporation or whatever it is deeply inspiring to me. And holding those folks accountable. And you know, in relation to the presidential election, so he could be the nominee. It could be a whole host of other terrible Republicans, but I think the only upside of that to me is that folks who may have, I would say, majority white, majority wealthy, educated people who were not involved in the political realm previous to Trump may get back involved. So that's the only possible upside that I could see. But anybody they nominate is going to be not great. So yeah.
So do you have any particular, in deciding to devote your life to this social justice, when you could probably make more money working in that bank, are there idols you had that, or people whose steps you feel you're following?
It's hard to say. It's like there's some people, some poets, some organizers that I'm deeply inspired by, but I don't know if I'm like necessarily following in their sort of career or trajectory. I don't think of it like that. I get a lot of inspiration from Ella Baker, a lot from Audre Lorde, a lot from Bell Hooks, a lot from Alicia Garza. You know, people who led the Occupy movement, people who worked on the Obama campaign. Yeah, it's a little different. Those are some of my spaces of inspiration. Octavia Butler, Adrienne Marie Brown. But I don't know. I think there's like different paths to follow, or like I haven't like followed in anyone's path necessarily.
That's a perfect answer to my question. I didn't mean, you know, you were doing what they're doing, but who inspired you, and you said so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is wonderful because, you know, I remember when we first met you, which was more than 10 years ago, like you said, maybe 2010. So that would be 13 years ago now. And anybody can look at you right now and say, oh, that she's a mere child. And imagine how young you were when we first met you. And yet you were wise. And I always wondered, you know, what did her parents feed her?
It's funny.
I mean, you know, intellectually, and how did you become so aware?
It's fun. I mean, I'm feeding my 8-month-old food now, so I think about diet all the time. And we didn't get like sugar till we were like 6 or 7, which is wild. But anyway, yeah, they are both really deeply spiritual. My dad got physically ill like after George Bush II won the second time around. So that's where his politics are. And my mom is just the fiercest advocate for so many, like anything me or my sister was struggling with in school or at in sports, or if someone was bullying us, she was like talking to the principal, like, you know, in conversation with the teacher, in conversation with the coach, whatever, fiercely. And that's continued. They moved to a different community for my dad's work years ago. And she was concerned about the local park. You know, she doesn't have kids that play there anymore, but she saw broken glass and a broken fence. So she was starting to get involved with the city council there and starting to just advocate herself. And then a leader of a local activism group, organizing group, saw her and started to talk about the trash incinerator nearby. So now they're like deeply involved in shutting down one of the largest trash incineration sites that has so little regulation, giving asthma to mostly poor Black people in Chester, near Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So it's just like, it's a little bit part of their, and they let me be a canvasser for Greenpeace when I was like 16. So yeah, it's a long time.
Well, that's wonderful. So I'm pretty sure you'll be raising your little 8-month-old the same way.
Yeah, I think so.
Does he have teeth yet?
Nope, not yet.
Okay, so he must be teething by now.
We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that's why you were up a couple of times last night.
Yep.
Well, Anjuli, it's been really great talking to you. Dick, do you have any last questions before we close out?
Well, it was just delightful to see you in the flesh after all these years at Jerry Manpearl's memorial. It was very nice to see you
Yeah.
and your little partner. You kept yourself busy in a productive way during the pandemic, and you brought him along.
Yeah. We're really excited about raising him.
Yeah, I bet.
And making
I'm
this
sure
and
you'll
making
make-
this world a better place for him to be raised in.
Yeah.
Anjuli Kronheim, Katz. So good to see you.
Nice to see you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anjuli.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.